Hey, this is Stephen Gibb, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast with my buddies Eric and Jeff.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers. You can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
And on Instagram.
Yeah. We also just recently added to Amazon Audible.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Stephen Gibb.
Stephen Gibb of the Barry Gibb Band.
Black Label Society.
Crowbar.
58 with Nikki Sixx.
Yeah, and a couple of that. He did some
He toured with Saigon Kick.
Yeah, Saigon Kick, Jason Bieler and Saigon Kick. So yeah, what a fantastic interview.
Yeah, he's working. He's been working with his dad's band, the Barry Gibb Band. They got a new album, Greenfields, and they've taken how many tracks was it? A former BG material? Yeah, it's all like the songbook of the Gibb Brothers,
right?
And they pair them up with modern country artists. I got down Little Big Town, Dolly Parton, Jason Isbell. Actually,
just a whole host.
Yeah, even has Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons.
Alison Krauss, I believe, is on there too. Correct? I believe so. I believe she is.
Yes.
So yeah. Greenfields has really hit the charts pretty hard. Yeah, it's really up there.
Yeah,
so
it's a neat album.
Yeah, and the new documentary, the new BG documentary that was done and sanctioned by the Gibb family and the Bee Gees.
Yeah, how can you mend a broken heart?
Yeah, and Stephen goes into great detail about how heartfelt this documentary is. So we were excited to have Stephen on the podcast. He kind of did it last minute for us. Man,
great guest.
A great guest. You can't say enough about the guy. Personable, grew up with legends.
Yeah.
He even said
he has some cool stories.
He did. So, hey, let's get to this interview.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Hey, Stephen, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hey, Stephen. Good to talk to you tonight.
Hey, it's great to meet you, Jeff.
Well, fantastic. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for all the correspondence that we've been doing over the last week. Thank you so much for getting this all tied up for us. We really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you
for
having me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So first and foremost, I guess the first question we've been asking a lot of our guests, how have you been dealing with the COVID-19 restrictions on the professional level?
I mean, I don't think it's, any secret. I mean, we're all sort of losing our minds, really, I think. But, speaking for myself, I think it was pretty horrible at the beginning, and now I'm actually starting to enjoy it a little bit. Not in a masochistic kind of a way, but I think that my I've begun to value the time with my family very much.
Yeah.
And I've been creative, and I've been busier in the last couple months. Thank God. I just can't wait to play shows again. That's really and not just play shows. I mean, I'm a huge fan myself, so I just miss going to shows.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I miss making plans.
Yeah. We had Damon Johnson on a couple weeks ago, and he said to us, he's like, I will never complain about a beer-soaked green room ever again in my life.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
Very much so. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. So what you been working on?
Well, basically the last 3 years have been, because I work pretty closely with my father, Barry, on all of his projects. I sort of co-manage him, I co-write with him, co-produce, and that's a creative partnership that's been happening for, I guess, about the last 10 years now, really since my Uncle Robin passed away, sadly. And so we did a record, we cut a record in Nashville back in the fall of 2019, and it's finally just came out. It was kind of sitting on a shelf for a little while, but we had the Bee Gees documentary that was 3 years in the making, and that came out around Christmas time, and so we're actually busy right now, thank God.
Well, as you're just bringing this up, let's discuss the creative process on the Greenfields. How did this project come to fruition for you and your father?
Well, my dad has been, I would say, at least to my knowledge, one of the biggest country fans I know his whole life. I mean, he grew up on Roy Orbison and Johnny Cash and all that kind of stuff, but you would have never known it from the Bee Gees music.
Right.
But, if I saw him listening to, if my dad doesn't listen to a lot of music, he kind of just likes to make his own. But when he does, more often than not, he's listening to classic country and, old school R&B and stuff from his youth, like most of us. We listen to what we grew up on. He had been wanting to make a country record for a long time, and it just didn't feel like the labels or especially once the Bee Gees were no longer, it was like, everybody wants to hear him make another disco record. And he's just like, that's who I was when I was 35. I'm 74 years old. Can I just chill out and play, some country? I mean, and the thing is, a lot of his songs, once you play them acoustically, you can hear how easily and comfortably they adapt into that style, because that's really how they were written. And I called up Dave Cobb, who I got got in touch with through a mutual friend, and Dave was like, absolutely, you kidding me? I'd love to work with your dad. And that was it, man. We went to Nashville and made this Greenfields record that is out now, and we're really happy with it, and I think that it's nice that there's a record out there right now that's making people feel good, because that's the response we're getting, is that it's giving people some comfort that love Barry and love some of the other artists that he's collaborated with on this record. So it's a really beautiful thing to see it finally come to fruition.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty refreshing. I listened to it today, and it's always a good sign of a good song when you can put it in a different genre than what it's was written for, and still sounds great. You got good music.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, a good song, you can. It doesn't matter, what genre it gets recreated in, as long as the person that's covering it loves the song and they've got the goods. A great song will always translate. It's amazing. Not so great songs sometimes don't. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard. I mean, you guys are like metal guys, I imagine.
I like all kinds of music.
We're all the above. We're a non-genre based rock and roll podcast. That's the best way I can put it.
Okay. Well, I'm a non-genre based person, but I've done a lot of things in metal in the past because that's what I grew up on. But I was hunting around on YouTube one day and I heard Ryan Adams do a cover of Round and Round by Rat. Okay? And, you know, you can say what you want about Rat. And I love him personally. Yeah. But a great song is a great song. You hear Round and Round done by him in a slower acoustic kind of vibe, and you just go, oh, absolutely. This is amazing. You know, it might even be a better song in that way. So I don't know. I love stuff like that personally.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of touched on COVID-19 and the creative process of recording Greenfields had already happened before the restrictions took place. But what hurdles had you and your father and the rest of the team that helped create this project? Was it for you guys to actually release it out to the public? Did you guys have to have any type of, any special type of clearances to get this thing moving during these times of COVID?
No, I think the hardest thing about, and I think this, I'll speak for myself, but I think the hardest thing for any of us throughout this process has just been the guessing game of like, because when you put so much love and passion and effort into something, to then put it out and just have it not really land because of whatever reason, that's pretty soul crushing for an artist, I think. So I just, we're all kind of hoping that, that there would be a window of time where it made sense. Unfortunately, but fortunately, releasing new music in this sort of era is kind of a good thing because, so many people are listening to music. So many people are looking at screens and listening to whatever. Mm-hmm. So the audience is paying attention, at least online, but then the downside is that, you've got a great record and you want to go out and play some shows and connect with people, and you can't do that. So, live streaming's fun, but it's there's nothing like the real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How much did you guys, or I'm trying to think of what I was trying to say, about going in to get the different, you have a wide variety of artists that play on this. You got Little Big Town, Keith Urban, Jason Isabel, Allison Krauss, Sheryl Crow, Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons. How much did you guys have input into the artists that were going to duet with your dad, or or was that by the record label?
No, it was actually, I think, mostly Dad and Dave Cobb kind of had their wish lists.
Nice.
And I sort of, I like to think I had a hand in some of the selection of like, who would be the dream people to have involved in such a record. I think that, between Dad, myself, definitely Dave was very instrumental. And a couple other people in our organization, Dave's manager, Andrew Brightman and Jay Landers, who, everybody did what they could to get people, to get to people that we wanted to get to, but it really wasn't that hard because just about everybody said, absolutely, I'd love to. And then really, I think the hard part is picking the songs and, seeing if, because I think really Dad wanted, people to pick, you want somebody to sing the song that they want to sing. You don't want to tell them, hey, it'd be really great if you sang Staying Alive or, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? And they're like, yeah, I like, that's cool, but I like Gotta Get a Message to You. You kind of want to let them have, some say in it. And so that's kind of how that all came to be. But that was the easy part. The hard part, I think, is getting everybody in one place long enough to do something like that, because it wasn't COVID. time, so people were touring, people were doing stuff, making their own records. So, logistically there were some, some hurdles, but we pulled it off. It was and we pulled it off in the nick of time. Thank God.
With the vast of material the Bee Gees had or have, and your dad's catalog is huge for the songs that he's written. So I guess the how do I say this? How did you select, or how was the selection of songs made? I don't remember how many songs are on Greenfields. Help me out, guys.
I believe it's 12.
12. Sorry. So how do you narrow it down to 12 songs? That body of work, how do you get it down to 12 songs without saying, oh, we left this song, oh, we left that song off?
I don't know. A lot of arguing. No, I'm kidding. I think the beautiful thing about the way everything unfolded is that it always felt right, and pretty much everybody agreed. It was really down to what the artists, the collaborators themselves were feeling. I think that and Dad has said this in other interviews, but Gillian Rawlings and Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, they wanted to do a lesser known song, and they really loved Butterfly. And that just made sense. It was like, yeah, that'd be great. They would do an amazing version of that, and they definitely did. So it all. I think sometimes making great music can come out of tension. Between people, but it's not always the most fun when that's the process. And this was just fun. This is just a bunch of people hanging out and having a good time and playing songs that they love.
Yeah. I kind of want to switch gears with you for a second.
Yeah, man.
2013 through 2015, you toured with your dad on the Mythology tour. Is that correct? And
that is.
That being said, doing that tour off and on for what was that, a little over 2 years? Is that correct? Or am I right?
That is. Yeah, it's about there.
Was that kind of like a driving force for your dad to kind of get back into making or creating new music, or making his older music new again?
Yeah, I would say in a sense, yes. I think that being that he was pretty much for the majority of his life in a band and in a band with his brothers, Mm-hmm. I think for him being out there all by himself was a little overwhelming as a prospect, and I don't think, and to be honest, I don't think it's as much fun. I think being out there all by yourself, even if you've got a band behind you, I think that he just wanted, he wanted support and the comfort, I guess, of a family member up there with him. And, I'd like to think that I didn't just get the job because I'm his son, but, I worked a long time personally to be worthy enough for the job. And I'm not a big fan of nepotism personally. So it was an uncomfortable thing for me at first. It was like, ooh, I don't know, Dad, I kind of do my own thing. And I like that it's very different than your thing. But after the loss of his brothers, it's an emotional thing. And I could never hold a candle to Morris or Robin, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to attempt to pay tribute to them in some small way, because I love them dearly as well. So, I think that, Dad wanted me to step up and be a part of it. And I took a risk on it. And you know what? We had a lot of fun. And I think in some ways it kind of saved, I don't want to speak for him, but my sense is that it kind of saved his soul a little bit. He was hurting. So doing some shows was seeing that people still cared and, loved the songs. He needed that at that time. It was a tough time for us. So we got through it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Go ahead, Jeff.
After that tour, you guys did his second solo album, In the Now. You played guitar on that one, correct?
I did.
Yeah, there was a couple songs that jumped out at me. It had some pretty cool guitar in it. Grand Illusion. Blowing a Fuse, and Amy in Color.
Yeah. There was some psychedelic moments. There's some cool ambient stuff. On that record, and it was what was fun about that record too was just him and I and my little brother who does some songwriting as well. The three of us wrote that record, nice. And then and we cut it live pretty much, like with Dad's touring band. So it was fun for me to be in Criteria Studios, where I grew up as a kid, but never got to record there. So to record at Studio A with my pops and my brothers in his band, like it was a blast. And
that'd be cool.
I don't think the world necessarily was ready for a Barry Gibb solo record at that time. It was a strange transition for us, because it wasn't what people expected. But I still think it's a good record. I know that there's a lot of genuine feelings in those lyrics. I'll speak for myself, but there's a lot of genuine stuff in there. So, I dig it. It was fun.
Oh, so cool. There's been a few documentaries, made for TV documentaries for the Bee Gees' history. How does this documentary that you collaborated with differ from the VH1 or whatever channel that did their own little documentary, or the Access documentaries? How was it different? Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about the process?
Well, I think this was the first documentary that was made by such a incredible filmmaker and director in Frank Marshall. He's made some great documentaries, music documentaries. But he's also made movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's a pretty heavy duty guy and a musician himself. So, I think that he had an angle on a way to tell their story in the documentary form that was different than the way it had been handled, in any of these past documentaries. And this is the first documentary made since the passing of Morris and Robin. So, there was also some other footage that we had uncovered. So it was the right time, I think. And I think it was the right director and Nigel Sinclair, the producer, and their whole approach was just unique. And so it just seemed like the right people and the right time.
As far as for you as family member goes, and once again, we're talking about, years and years of history. Yeah. When a documentary is coming out and it's being done by, your dad are collaborating to make this documentary. How does the, I hate to say the word process, I say that a lot, but it is a process. How do you do that? How do you take so much history and narrow it down to what is it like an hour and a half or 2 hour documentary? How does it come down to what do you pick and choose? Because there's so much history to be told.
60 years.
You can't tell it all. So how do you find the focus points and say, okay, we're going to skip this, but we're going to focus in on this? How does that work?
Well, in all honesty, I think the beauty of having Frank and Nigel and their whole organization involved is it really wasn't down to us. I think that in all honesty, we're too close, and it just cuts, every bit of it cuts too close to the bone for us.
Sure.
And so the beauty of having people like this, when you give them the keys to the vault, theoretically, right?
Exactly.
And they carve out the arc of the story and the way they want to. They're the filmmakers. We had very little to do with it. We just said yes, and really, prayed that this was, that this was in the right hands. And and then there's there's editing and you see several different versions of it. And then, there's some collaboration there, but it's ultimately, it's the filmmaker's film, to make. And we're just, my dad and his brothers, they're the subject. And fortunately so, it really did work out. And I'm grateful we didn't have to be too deeply involved, because I think too, when you have three separate families, right, within one larger family, there's so many different perceptions of what happened. And really the only person that was there the whole time was my dad. Mm-hmm. And then, everybody else that was there for the entirety of their career is no longer with us. So, except for maybe a small handful of people. But, Robin and Morris are no longer with us, God rest their souls. So it's kind of like between my dad and the filmmakers, they have to try to get it right.
As far as archiving material, history, anything like that the family your dad owns, is it something that your dad kind of had to go through so much material to kind of hand it over to the filmmakers for them to do their business, or was it all on them to do their own research and digging up things on their own?
No, we have tons of archived, footage and we just basically handed it to the filmmakers, and then they had the joy or nightmare of turning into something watchable that was different than past documentaries. My father, he can't even watch it. I think he's only made it halfway through.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's just emotionally, just challenging, I would say. It's just very challenging for him.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
And for our listeners, what was the name of that documentary again?
It's called How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, and it's currently on HBO Max and HBO. If you don't have streaming, I think it's still I think you can get it on demand. But yeah, HBO Max streaming.
Nice.
Oh, very good. You going to take this next question?
Yeah, I think so. So we've talked a little bit about what you've been doing the last couple of years. What, as far as your own music, do you have anything in the works or working on anything for future release?
Yeah, I'm currently, sort of bit by bit, writing and compiling a mass of material of my own. I've always been a band guy.
Yeah.
So COVID, songwriting and recording in COVID for me is like just not a fun experience. I've never been like I've written a few songs, quite a few by myself, but I prefer to collaborate. So yeah. I'm doing my best to get everything that I have together. And as soon as I can get into a room with a few of my close friends, I want to kind of finish the material I have from a songwriting standpoint. And then, once it's kind of there, hopefully go into a studio and at least, bang out the bulk of it live. And then, I'll try to put my vocals and everything else, I'll probably do that, at some point after everything is, feeling good, but it's a matter of, when can I do that? When are people going to be up for doing that? Cause I don't have a big budget to do that with. So I have to put some stuff together. So, I'm trying to collaborate a little bit online with a few people, and I've done some stuff with Jason Beeler, who I used to play with in Saigon Kick. And I'm trying to do that thing, but I really, I'm not old, but I'm a bit of an old school guy, and that I just like being in a room with guys and jamming, and that's how I like to get the song finished.
So
that makes sense.
When you're in the studio, when you're doing your own stuff, now how do you view yourself? Do you view yourself as a guitar player that sings, or are you the singing guitar player? How does that work for you?
I don't know that I'm very good at either one of those things. I just know that I love it. I think that if I'm totally honest, I always I only ever really wanted to be a guitar player. And even when I was in bands when I was younger, all my buddies were like, dude, you sing better than everybody. Why don't you just sing? And I'm like, nope. I mean, and the truth is like when you come from a family where, there's so many great singers and I don't sound anything like them really. So it was like, it was always too daunting to me. It's like, I don't want the comparisons, I kind of want to ride, I want to float under the radar. I don't want to be known as Stephen Gibb, Barry Gibb's son. I sort of shied from that for a long time. And I figured if I was just a guitar player, I could just kind of hang back and do stuff. Or, bass player. I mean, and it's an easier job, in all honesty. Singing is hard work. And I have a lot of respect for dudes that I mean, do it well and do it every night. I mean, there's nothing more badass in my opinion. I never really felt like I was good enough to do it. But what I have learned as a result, strangely enough, of working with my dad is that I do have a good voice and I enjoy singing. It's just not something I had a strong desire to do from early on. I just wanted to play guitar and jam with my buddies,
It's kind of fascinating that you brought that up, is because you come from a family of singers, as you said that. And I was reading that article, I think it was a couple weeks ago. It was just a small article with Wolfgang Van Halen, and he had said something in regards, and I hope I'm not taking this out of context, but he said, having Eddie Van Halen as your guitar teacher was a blessing and a curse, because he's your dad, he's the greatest guitar player in the world, but yet he's like, how come you can't understand what I'm trying to show you right now? It's so easy. And he goes, well, you're Eddie Van Halen. Of course it's easy.
Exactly.
Did you ever feel that way vocally, with yourself? It's like, you come from your father, great vocalist, your uncle's great vocalist. Did you ever feel like, this is just, so daunting to, try to get behind the microphone and sing my own stuff? Is that kind of how you viewed your thing as well?
Yeah, I was just terrified at the prospect of it. And I mean, like, in all honesty, man, I when I was younger, I was not a tower of self-esteem, I had my own issues and stuff. So it was like, I'll hang back. I felt more comfortable in the background,
Sure.
But, in all honesty, I think I'm blessed in that I got to watch the Bee Gees create, sing together, most of my childhood, almost every day. Mm-hmm. And when you're exposed to that kind of thing, even if you aren't the best singer yourself, what I found is that I know things that I didn't realize I knew. Mm. And then once,
excuse me.
Hey, you all right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all good, man. I was just hoping it wasn't something I said. I think that I mean, I don't know. It's a tough thing to describe. It's like it's sometimes just being around that kind of thing informs you in a way that I'm just grateful for it, because now that I am open to singing and enjoying it, it's kind of fun. It's like having a new favorite instrument. I don't know. It's fun.
Oh, so cool.
And yeah.
Let's really change gears here with you. Let's talk about Nikki Sixx and 58.
Yeah.
It ended up being a one-off project. I love the album. Can you talk to us a little bit? Yeah, talk to us a little bit more about the project. Give us us and our listeners an insight of how it all came up, how it all came together and how it all kind of dissolved.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting time, man. I grew up in Miami, and I was I had kind of, I was in a band down here called the Underbellies, and we had a development deal with Columbia, and then that fell apart, and I kind of didn't know what I was doing with my life, so I moved to LA, not really hoping for much, just looking to get out of Miami, and I was out there for a while, and things just weren't happening, and then one day I got a call I guess somebody had given Nicky my phone number. I think it might have been Alan Kovac. And Nicky just cold called me one day and asked me, if I wanted to, hang out and maybe, write or, maybe be a part of this kind of new project he was doing that he said was going to be like an internet band. Now, when I say internet, we're talking AOL.
Yeah. Okay.
Like freaking dial-up internet. Like, I mean, to his credit, he was probably 20 years ahead of his time. But he's he was taking time off from Motley, and he's just like, hey, you want to hang out and check it out and see if we get along or whatever. And I was like, sure, dude. I was like, I don't know, I was like 24 years old or something. The funny thing was I didn't believe him. I hung up on him, I think, like twice, because this is even like, I didn't have caller ID or anything. It was like, hey, this is Nicky Six. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, dude. I thought it was one of my buddies messing around. And then, he was like, dude, don't hang up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, we hung out a few times. I think I played some guitar on some stuff and it was fun. It was quick. But it was a cool first gig to have when I moved out there. And then, he didn't want to tour because there was Motley stuff, going on. And, I was just like, all right, whatever. And I ran into my old pal, Zach Wilde around that same time. And, that was like, I don't know, like we were hanging out and Zach and I have known each other since I was about 14.
Nice.
So, Zach was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, actually nothing. I'm thinking about leaving because there was nothing going on. And, he asked me if I wanted to audition for Black Label Society. And, we drank a bunch of beer and I think ran through the songs once or twice. And I'd never played bass before in my life. I'd only ever been a guitar player. And the next thing I know, I'm in Japan with him and that was a whirlwind of insanity.
Yeah.
It's great.
How did that transition work for you, going from guitar to bass? Big learning curve for you, or did it kind of come naturally?
No, it came pretty naturally. I mean, I started on the piano and then moved to the guitar when I was in my early teens. And then, if it had strings on it, it was just okay, I'm going to do this now. And fortunately, you don't have to be John Paul Jones to play Black Label Society songs. So that or Geddy Lee, that worked to my advantage. Because if I would have had to play with my fingers, I would have been like, dude, I'm not your guy, but yeah, it was like, he's like, just fucking throw down. And it was, I already felt comfortable with, the way, I've always been, I've always appreciated Zach's playing. And so I get the way he plays as a guitar player. So, it's basically just adapting that to bigger strings and less notes. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll do that. That sounds fun.
Back in 2004, you hooked up with Kurt Winstein with Crowbar. Can you give us, our listeners, an insight, to your time in Crowbar, and how long did that last for you? What was the duration of that?
Well, I always say that some of the funniest and most bizarre things that ever happened to me, I can never tell anybody, and they all involve Kirk Winstein. I was a big Crowbar fan when I was, like in the Beavis and Butthead days. That was the first time I ever heard them. And I was just like, literally like, this is fucking so heavy. I love it. Mm-hmm. When I was in BLS, we did our first American tour was us and Crowbar and a band called 60 Watt Shaman. It was the Pension for Violence tour, and it was more like the Pension for Problems tour, as Zach likes to call it. But it was an adventure for sure, and I just immediately got along with Kirk like I'd known him for 3 lifetimes. We got along and became real tight very quickly, and when things didn't really work out for me with Black Label Society anymore, Kirk and I stayed in touch, and he's a really good friend to me and always has been, one of my best. And it was just, he was doing Down at one point, and then Down wasn't doing anything, and he was going to do another record. And then when he wanted to tour, he was like, "Hey, you want to come up to New Orleans and jam?" And I did, and it worked. And and again, it's like another good time with one of my best friends. Like I just had I got lucky. Yeah. But yeah, that was like I think I was in the band for about 6 years.
Oh.
And yeah, probably some of the best times I've ever had playing music ever with anybody has been with Crowbar.
Yeah, very cool.
Just pure enjoyment, like there was never any issues or arguments or anything. Just the way you want it to be,
So cool. Your story. You should have been in Hired Gun, the documentary. That with your story. You had great stories to tell.
Oh yeah. I remember when I saw that, I was like, this is. I didn't want to. I mean, it was cool. Like, but I think sometimes those documentaries can be good. They're fun to watch if maybe you don't. Maybe you're not familiar with it so much, but I felt they could have gotten a little deeper with it, but I still think it was well done, and I'm glad that they did it. It's really cool.
I really think I really believe that documentary should have like, a part 2, a part 3 to it. Cause once again, so much material, you're only just scratching the surface.
Well, yeah. And there's so many guys with so many great stories. I mean, one of the beautiful things about being a sort of member of the great traveling circus is that, I mean, it's a small world, and it's really, it doesn't necessarily matter what genre of music you play. The experience of being a musician is quite similar, no matter what you're into,
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all have like just bizarre experiences, and a lot of them, just aren't fit for TV. The truth of it, and not because of like Me Too stuff or anything, but just because it's, it can just get dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to. I mean, we've all been involved in some silliness out there, but I think that I'll speak for myself. I had I definitely did. I was more into sort of exploring my own mind with drugs and alcohol a lot, and that's a hard road to go down out there or anywhere,
Yeah.
And that definitely colored my experience in a negative way. But I don't really have any regrets. I had a lot of fun. I just wish I didn't have to screw up my career at certain points because I was having too much fun. And in hindsight, I'm not. I think it was unprofessional. I could have been a better professional. As far as my own integrity is concerned. But it's tough, man. There's a lot of downtime, and historically, when you have little to do and very few options, those kinds of things become an option.
Yeah.
But we've all seen the behind the music shit, and everybody's seen that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, nobody's unique. It's like, we all fall into these bear traps occasionally. And I think the important thing is that you get out and you don't die. And that's the sad part, is when you lose so many talented people because they don't have coping skills.
Right.
And as you say that, when they used to do those behind the musics on VH1 Classic or whatever it was was so amazing to me. And it's this rags to riches, then back down to rags again, and now they're back. Now they're on a level playing field. Now they're cleaned up, and it never ever failed. After you watch one of those documentaries, then all of a sudden you read about somebody who got thrown in jail for whatever, for drug possession or dealing or whatever. I was like, hold on, I just watched your behind the music like a month ago, and you said you're all clean, and now you're back down dirty in the rack. I don't know, but that was my thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Oh, it's all. But anyway.
Well, it's harder to it's easier said than done, the whole staying clean thing, especially in a business that isn't supportive of it. But fortunately, I think in the last decade or so, you know, there's no room to mess around anymore. You got to be a pro. You got to do your job. You got to deliver, because there's a million guys waiting to take your job. And you know, there's a lot of talented people out there that don't have drug problems.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there's a lot of people that really do take it seriously. And you should, because if you love something as much as, like, you know, as much as I love music, you know, I should have had more respect for myself and for music and for fans. You know, I mean, I don't think I ever played a horrible show, but I know that deep down, I know I could have done better on certain nights, and that's not a good feeling, you know?
No.
Yeah.
So completely.
And I think the business is more supportive of, you know, in general, you know, there's 12-step meetings, you know, at the venues or, you know, especially like on some of these festivals, you know, they have full-blown AA meetings, and people are connected, and they're, you know, the sober guys hang out with the sober guys, and the fucking lunatics hang out with the lunatics. And it works.
Do you think, you know, this day and age of social media where, you know, the mystery is completely gone from rock and roll. There's no more mysteries left. I mean, it used to be the artists of the 60s and 70s and 80s all had this mystery aura to them, or certainly certain artists did. You know, The Who, obviously Kiss, Zeppelin. We can go right down the list. I mean, even the Bee Gees had a mystery to them, you know? But with social media now, you know, I guess the cat's out of the bag. I mean, everybody knows what everybody's doing all the time. And as far as the extracurriculars of rock and rollers and their indulgences, do you think it kind of helped clean it up a little bit? Because now you just really can't be that messed up person anymore, because everybody's going to find out about it.
Well, yeah, I think that is a big part of it. I also think it's made music and rock and roll a whole lot less artistic and interesting. You know, I mean, I do think it's cool to know stuff about people that you know, whose music you appreciate and love. I mean, I think it's, you know, I mean, when I was growing up, you know, I would have loved to have heard more interviews with Jimmy Page, but you didn't, you know, and, you know, Zeppelin was this very, very mysterious thing. And that was a big part of the allure, you know, is that, you know, these were untouchable people. They were gods in a sense. You know, obviously, you know, they're not, but they're still godlike to those of us that grew up on that stuff. And I think that nowadays, I think it's one of those double-edged swords. I think it's great that, you know, now everybody can see how boring most of us really are. You know, because really, I mean, what do? I spend, you know, I wake up, I take my dog to the dog park, and then, you know, I play guitar and I putter around on the computer and I take care of whatever business stuff, or, you know, maybe I go to the studio, or maybe I, you know, if I'm fortunate enough to be on tour, it's like, you know, you spend a couple hours on stage, thank God, and the rest of the day, everybody's sitting on a sofa staring at their fucking phones. You know what I mean? It's like, it's definitely not what it was. And I think that's both good and bad, you know, but I think that social media has just, I don't know. I just, look, I'm now old enough that I'm old, you know? And so, you know, I miss how it used to be, but I also like the fact that things are changing every day. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I just think it's getting to the point where there's such a fire hose of information and content and music that it's hard to find stuff, because there's just so much of it. And again, that's great and kind of sometimes overwhelming, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I have one more question for you, and then we'll leave you alone for the night. Deal?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm digging it.
Cool. So the Gibb family has been involved in the Diabetic Research Institute Foundation for years. How did the Gibb family get so involved? What was the steps like? I guess maybe was that when you were a small child, or how did it all start?
Well, my dad my dad became, when I was a kid, he became an international chairman for the Diabetes Research Institute. And I believe his grandmother was diabetic. And so he was passionate about that at that time. And I think more so than having the personal connection, I think he just, both him and my mother just had a great, just felt a great deal for people that, were born this way or there was very, very little treatment for it back then. Mm-hmm. And it can still be very, 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 very horrible for people suffering, and now with, type 2 diabetes and, all these other, sort of metabolic conditions growing, as a result of poor health in this country and all over the world, it's like, there's many charities that need support, and, they're the Diabetes Research Institute is one of them where, the money actually does go to what they're, to the research and stuff that they say it's going to, so it's just something I think, that they were very passionate about, and they're, and a lot of friendships and long-standing, relationships came out of working with that organization. So, it's become like a home base for my folks in a way. They really, really love the people they've gotten to know through that.
Oh,
as well.
God bless them. Yeah. I was totally in the dark about diabetes until I rescued a dog, and I have a diabetic dog now. So I've learned a lot about it. I know it's like apples to oranges, from pets to humans, but it's still, diabetes is diabetes, so it's a big learning curve for me for sure. So we've come to the end of our Q&A session with you. Is there anything that we left out that, for promotion for you that you would like to kind of put out there that we missed out on? Anything?
No, I mean, I just want to say thanks. I appreciate you guys having any interest in my silly rock and roll endeavors. It's been quite a ride. and I just I'm always happy to talk about music, man. I love it more than anything. I wake up every day and it's all I can think about, and it's what I think about when I'm falling asleep at night. I just, there's not enough time in life to do everything you want to do. So, I'm grateful that I've gotten to do any of it at all, and hopefully there's more to come. Yeah.
It is so interesting as you say that, because I was in the car with my dad the other day. I had to go help him move some things, and he was talking to me about the podcast, and he's like, "Hey, did you hear about Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman are getting back together? They're going to do a tour when all this is all over with." I said, "Well, if they're going to do it, if it's really going to happen, they better do it, because they're not getting any younger." Yeah. And I said, because from what we all observed by doing this podcast, and we've interviewed, hundreds of artists now, is that the creative process one day, it'll end, and you got to make as much music and create as much as you can while you're here. That's the biggest thing. And man, having those two guys come back together again, do it while they can,
Yeah, man. And you know what? The thing is with music is it's nothing connects you to the more pure, emotions of your youth than listening or playing music. I mean, when if there's, if I'm playing, it's a bass player, drummer, singer, whatever, as soon as I plug in and we start playing anything, it's like I'm immediately 14 years old again. Yeah. So whether anybody wants to listen or not is almost, it's just a bonus, but honestly, I'm just as happy sitting in a room playing guitar by myself as I am playing in front of people or making records. I just love it. And I think that, in some ways, music is the thing that can heal everybody, and you can go anywhere in the world, and even if they don't speak your language, they know your music and they sing the words, and that's a pretty powerful thing to experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm grateful for all those experiences and for all the people that I've met over the years. It's it's a beautiful world out there.
It is. Well, this is how it's all going to work out. Your episode should be out about, I would say, about 2.5 weeks. You think, Jeff? About 2.5 weeks. You're right behind James.
Awesome.
Right behind James Lomenzo. So when James Lomenzo gets released, then yours is going to come next.
Okay. Well, he's the much better bass player out of the two of us. That's for sure. That guy's an animal.
Yeah, he is. You want to talk about a great guy too. Fantastic human being. So
that's what I hear. I've only met him once, but yeah, I've heard great things about him.
Okay. So now you have to do us a huge favor. So, I kind of like sent you a friend request on social media. So if you would accept that. And then
you did?
I did. And then
on which one?
I'm not going to announce which one. It starts with the letter F, but I'm not going to say the word. Anyway.
Okay. But all right, yeah.
Go ahead. So anyway, what I'm trying to say.
No, I gotta find you.
All right, well, keep digging. But after you find me, then I'm going to send you a link or a request to like the Nothing Shocking podcast fan page. It would behoove you to join that, so we could, so you can see when your stuff goes out, like your teasers and your episodes and all that good stuff.
Totally, man. What's your full name? I just want to make sure I got it all in here.
Okay, it's Eric, ERIC Nesbitt, NESB.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah, Eric Nesbitt. Yeah, that's my friend Eric.
Yeah, just like the soda pop.
That's my mate Eric. All right, Eric.
Fantastic. Okay, so with that being said, we want to thank you so much for your participation. You've been fantastic. So thank you. Appreciate it.
No, man, it's my pleasure, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a good time. Man.
We had a great time with you. And like I said, I'll be in touch with you in about 2.5 weeks. I'll have your link to your episode. And then we'll have it up on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. And then if you want to share it, or we can kind of I can send it to you through Facebook. I can tag it, all that stuff.
Yeah, we'll do the whole fucking whatever that everybody does. I'm totally... Yeah.
All right, man.
No worries, man. Anything you guys need at all, let me know. And again, thanks so much, guys. Have a great night. All right.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thanks. All right. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
I ever take from you, then you plug out both